I had to make a serious choice about what the next 20 or 30 years of my life was going to look like. And I had to choose to be happy.
Welcome to Biz Stories Shared, where storytellers share their inspiration, motivation, some disappointments, and how they applied the lessons that led them to success. Stories are gifts. Listen as these gifts are shared. Now, here is your host, Charlotte Plott.
Hello, storytellers. This is Charlotte Plott, and I'm thrilled to bring you our guest today, Nicole Wipp. Nicole, are you ready to be a storyteller?
I am, Charlotte. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I've been so excited for our time together. So I'll tell you a little bit about Nicole. Nicole Wipp was admitted to practice law in Michigan and Hawaii, U.S. District Court of Hawaii, and U.S. District Court, Eastern District of Michigan. She is the podcast host of Smart Planning 101 and just recently submitted her book titled Dear Mom and Dad, Help Me Help You. It's an elder law attorney's guide to smart strategies and difficult conversations about health and money, and immediately the book was number 1 in 5 categories on Amazon.com. Listeners, you can pre-order this book, and it will be auto-delivered to your Kindle on March 9th, 2016. The pre-order price is 99 cents. Well, Nicole, here at Biz Stories Shared, we start every show with our guest's favorite quote. Do you have a favorite quote, and how do you apply this to your everyday thinking?
Well, Charlotte, I actually am in the process of having a favorite mantra right now that I want to share with you instead of a specific quote, because I think that a lot of quotes are just awesome. But what I've been finding that's been useful to me in terms of a mantra is something that I learned from, well, it's something that sort of evolves over time, but also something that's sort of been solidifying to me as a mantra lately from Dan Sullivan. And he is the creator of Strategic Coach, which is a high level business coaching or entrepreneurial coaching group that teaches entrepreneurs how to think.
Okay.
And so that I belong to. And so the concept is about wanting what you want and not feeling guilty or having to justify success or wanting success. And the thing is that, and he has a book on it. It's called Wanting What You Want. And I think some people look at it as sort of an idea that you can use it to sort of step on people and run them over and, get what you want in terms of success, like a Machiavellian kind of the end justifies the means.
Right.
But I don't look at it that way, and I don't believe that that is the way in which he meant it. The point is that it's okay to want to be successful. It's okay to want to rise above. It's okay to want to do more and be more. And you don't need to justify that desire. And the reason why I love it is because I think particularly women struggle with this on some level. Like you have to pay your dues and, that you can't just want to be successful and you can't want to be better and you can't like that there's somehow something that's uncomfortable about that for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I know what you mean.
And it's reinforced a lot by the people that are around us. Sometimes our family maybe, or our friends, our longtime friends, that just don't have those same goals as we do, that maybe don't share our dreams of being really successful entrepreneurs or wanting to level up. And yet the point is that you don't need to, you don't need to be like everybody else. It's okay to want to be better, and you don't have to justify it, and you don't have to pay your dues on it. You just do it, and it's okay. And so I love this. I love this mantra. I love this thought process because what it does is it creates a lot of freedom in your mind if you can really internalize it to go for it and do it.
Oh, I really do like that. And going a little bit deeper into that, can you tell the storyteller listeners how you apply this mantra to your journey?
Well, it's funny because I am a very driven person, like many entrepreneurs are. And I have done a lot of different things, and I've had successes and I've had failures. And so it's easy sometimes to let these what I call conventional thoughts creep in and sort of discourage us from wanting success. And sometimes success can be scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember the first time somebody told me that I could make $50,000 a month. And to me, the idea of $50,000 a month, because I came from a very modest background, I'm from a very modest family. I don't come from wealth. And the idea of making $50,000 a month was mind blowing to me.
Right.
Um, but I just remember being like, no, you can do it, and sort of breaking it down and what it would take to do that, and then just doing it. And then when I did it, it was like, oh, okay. You know, and it wasn't really, to be honest with you, and this is what's sort of funny and what people don't understand is that in some ways it's as easy to make $50,000 a month as it is $5,000 a month. Part of what stops us from doing that, or probably even $500,000 a month, if you really want to go crazy, part of what stops us from doing that is fear and the chains, what I call the chains around our own minds.
Right.
And so by sort of wanting what I wanted, like making that my initial goal and saying, this is what I want to do, and then just making it happen and not having to justify myself and not having to explain myself, just doing it was very freeing.
I can see that that would be freeing, and sometimes we really do hold ourselves back.
Oh, I really believe, to be honest with you, Charlotte, that that is 100% the cause of failure for most people.
Right. I agree. Fear and not believing in ourselves and being free. I really appreciate what you shared with that. That was very genuine and very important for all of us to believe that. We have to believe it before it'll come true.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. That's the first step is just believing that it's possible. But when I was saying about fear, because, sometimes there are a lot of things get in the way of what that means. Like if I make $50,000 a month, what am I going to have to do to make that? Like how much work am I going to have to do?
Right.
How much, what am I going to have to sacrifice? What am I going to have to give? And sort of all of these thought processes start creeping in. And some people think to themselves, and I know this because I was that person at one point, well, I don't know if I'm willing to do the things that it's going to take to make that kind of money. But you also have to have a belief that you can do it in a way that's not going to mean you're going to kill yourself in order to get it. That there's a way to get to whatever the number is. It doesn't have to be $50,000 a
Sure.
month. I mean, I realize that for some people that just sounds ridiculous and outrageous, and that's okay. Um, the point is that maybe it's $5,000 a month, maybe it's $500 a month,
Right.
depending on where you're at in your entrepreneurial journey. But the point is that you have to also believe that there is a way to do it that is going to mean that you can do it in a way that isn't going to kill yourself, or whatever the fears are that's holding you back, whatever the thoughts are that are saying that's why I can't do that. You need to address them head on.
Mhm. Yes, that's for sure. Well, I really appreciate, as I said, you sharing that, and how are you applying that to your journey?
Well, it's a struggle every day for me. I think that every day I have to struggle with thoughts that are sort of self-limiting.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I do as an exercise, and I don't do it every day, and I should, but I try, okay,
Right.
is I try to think of the things that remind me of where I'm going, and think of the things that remind me of what my purpose is and why I'm trying to achieve X or Y. And so I do multiple things in relation to that. I have certain things that I'll read. I have certain books that I read and certain passages of books that I read that remind me of where I'm going. I have lists of things that remind me of why I do what I do. And of course, first and foremost is related to my family.
Right.
But part of it is that, but getting back to the wanting what you want, not having to justify it, is that I also remind myself that I do it for me, which is a big deal to
Yes,
to say, okay?
it
And
is.
it was a big struggle for me to say. And To be honest with you, even has a little bit of fear saying it out loud right now, but that's what I struggle with, like just like everybody. But doing it with for me, because this is the thing. I want to prove to myself that I can be the best person that I can be. And part of that is success, right?
It
So
is.
measuring my own success against myself. So it doesn't matter where you are in life, right? Whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 60s, it doesn't matter. You can start today to be the best person that you can be in your life. And for some people that may be business success. For some of us that may mean success in other endeavors, but just striving toward that and then being okay to be the best person that you are, because when you do it for yourself, you are giving back to the people around you. I have noticed and I have been told by others that when I do strive to be the best person that I be, that I actually inspire others to do the same for themselves. And they also find freedom in being okay with trying.
Oh, I think that's so powerful, and I would guess that a big part of any of us striving like that is that we have to know that we're not being egotistical when we strive for that. We're using the gifts that God gave us to when we want to be better and to help other people in that betterment.
Right. And so that's exactly right, Charlotte. Like if it helps you to think of it that way, and that is a very true statement. So there isn't anything wrong with that thought process. Is yes, using the gifts that God gave you, and God gave you, or whatever you think or pray to, you are on this earth and you have specific things about you that make you unique. So why not use what's the best and highest of you
Right.
to make what's better around you? And if you think about it that way, that you're striving to be that best person, that you're striving to use the gifts that you came into this world with, it becomes a much easier way to behave and think.
Right. Well, I think you have just shared some really powerful insights, and thank you for that. And so I'm going to go on a little different area here now, and ask you along the way if you've had some real hard moments that enlightened you to the importance of estate planning. Now, and I want to ask you to tell us one of the times you just didn't get the results that you set out to achieve.
Well, okay. So I am an estate planning attorney. That's my main, I guess, job. And so I have a law firm. But the road to getting to that was actually what I want to share, because
Okay.
what happened was I was a successful litigation attorney prior to opening this iteration of my law firm. And, but I was miserable. Okay. I was miserable.
Okay.
And I did a lot of, no, looking back now, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I did a lot of things that were self defeating as the result of it. So even though I was financially successful in my law firm, I was personally and professionally bankrupt.
Oh,
And so because I was so unhappy with the course of my professional career. And and I had to really come to the realization that life had to be more than that, and that I had to make a choice to make it different and just do it.
okay.
And that sounds very simple, but if anybody's here is thinking about what I'm saying, you can just imagine what I literally did was I said, I am no longer going to do this thing that I make really good money at. I am not going to accept those clients any longer, and I'm only going to do this new thing. And so it was a complete leap from one
Wow.
thing to the next. And I always tell people I did it partly just based on survival, but it also was I had to make a serious choice about what the next 20 or 30 years of my life was going to look like. And I had to choose to be happy.
Yeah, that's a good choice. Very.
And I did it. But it takes a lot to get to that point. And part of it you have to be sort of, I think, You have to be sort of really miserable. And that's the problem for most people is they're not really, I don't think you have to be. Let me actually back that up. I think you can be really miserable or you can be just a little bit miserable.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think most people actually operate in the space of being a little bit miserable. Okay. Not being like super miserable, but just a little bit miserable.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And but it should be just as powerful then. Like, is that really what you want for the rest of your life? Is just to be a little bit miserable, or the rest of your working life or your working career? You need to make a choice that that's not going to be acceptable, and you're going to decide what you're not going to tolerate, and that you're going to decide that you want things to be better. And so that, and you have to make that choice to be able to step away from those things. And it can be very difficult, but that's like the thought process that you have to engage in is this what I want?
Right. And so the lesson that I hear that you learned is that you really had to do a lot of personal introspection to see what you were willing to give up and what you were willing to take on as challenges to live the life that you wanted professionally and then with your family also.
Right. I mean, I had to make, like, I literally went to the point where I said to myself, if what this means is that I have to go work in a fast food place, then that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
And now I don't want anybody to think that I am saying that working in a fast food place is bad because I don't think it is at all. I honor anybody that works for a wage and makes a living and stands on their own 2 feet, no matter what it is that they do.
Right.
But as an attorney with a successful law firm, clearly going to work in a fast food place would be lower than what my capabilities would be at this point in my life, right?
Certainly.
But I had to be okay with that in
Okay.
order to make, and that was like what I told myself would be the worst case scenario, is that that's what it would be. Because for me, the worst case scenario wasn't that I wasn't going to work. I know that if you have enough energy and drive, you can find something to work at. There's something to do. It's just, what are you willing to do, right? And so a lot of people, I can't find work. They're not willing to do certain things that they consider that are not, to there, it's below them. I
Yes.
did not think anything was below me, and I was willing to go to what would be well below my capabilities in order to get where I wanted to go. And the
That,
second I made that decision and really internalized it, I was able to do it.
oh, that makes sense. Yeah, well, good for you. And when you learn those lessons, they help us to move forward. And then what was the aha moment on your journey that when you became aware of the new path that you wanted to travel? So will you take us to that moment when you had the light bulb go off and share the steps that you took to turn that idea into success?
Well, the aha moment was when my husband said to me, "This is not good. What the way you are every day, the way you come home, the way that you feel isn't okay with me.
Okay.
And I am not okay with you being like this for much longer."
Right.
And so when my husband, who I very much adore and love, said this to me, I had to take it seriously.
Right.
And it sort of woke me up because, sometimes it does take somebody else pointing things out to us to make us realize.
That's true.
And the moment he said that to me, that was my aha moment. What am I willing to tolerate? Am I willing to tolerate losing my marriage? Absolutely not.
Right.
Am I willing to tolerate not being home for then at that time, my son was younger. Am I willing to tolerate not being home for my baby? No, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Am I willing to tolerate? So sort of those thought processes that became the aha that led to a series of ahas. And then what I had to do, and at that point, was just make the decision to make the change. And then once I did that, I decided I had to sort of learn what my change was going to be. So that wasn't a very easy decision for me at that point because I really hadn't considered anything else yet.
Right.
So much like a lot of us, right? We don't really know. We know we want to do something else, but we don't know what it is.
Yes.
So I had to actively go out and search out other paths. And it was funny because the estate planning path for me had never been an option. It was what I considered to be extremely boring.
Oh,
I thought it was fill in the blank lawyering. And that wasn't interesting to me. I was a litigator. I had been a courtroom attorney. I had been a prosecutor. I was used to thinking on my feet and, really having to use my brain.
right.
And so I didn't really think of it that way. But in the course of my discovery, I learned about a sort of a different way to do estate planning, which is really more of what I do, which is asset protection and elder law planning. And when I realized the power of what it did for people and the complexity of it, that was what I was attracted to. So once I learned that that was a path that would be a really good path for me, then I just took the steps to make it happen. I had to go register for a course to learn about it. I had to fly to another state and spend several days away from my home and my family and my law firm. I had to come back. I had to learn more. I mean, what I do now is a very complex area of the law that is not something that people really understand very well. I had to learn how to talk to clients about it. I had to learn how to teach people about it. I had to learn about a lot of different things. So I had to do a lot of education to get me to be able to do the new thing. So it really wasn't something that just happened overnight. And then I had to take the steps to change my business. I had to bring on new employees in order to help facilitate this. And that was a big deal for me at that time because I had resisted bringing in new employees into my law practice forever. I had
Wow.
resisted it. But part of the reason was because I didn't want to get bigger because I didn't like it.
Right. That makes sense.
And so once I came to that realization, then it became so. But then there's always the money thing, right? Like if
Mm-hmm.
you hire somebody, it's going to cost you money. So I had to learn how to think about it as an investment, and understand that I could hire somebody to do the things that I wasn't as good at doing or really wasn't very interested in doing, that somebody could do much better than I could. And I could use my time to do the things that I was good at. So I had to learn all these things. These are the steps. It was an evolution. And once I did that, that sort of enabled me to get started. And over the course of the last several years, I've refined all those things to a much greater degree to where I'm now able to do even more and other things. So I have my Smart Planning 101 podcast, I have a Smart Health 101 podcast, and I'm able to advocate for different things that I have a lot of energy for and passion for, rare disease research and things like that. So I'm able to do other things now because I've created freedoms in my workspace that allow me to do those things. But all of that happened as a result of that one aha moment that led me down this path.
Wow. That's really profound. And I just want to say that elder law, it is such an important area of our lives, and people are afraid because we don't understand it. And so it's such an important work that you're doing. And so thank you for that. I know you explained it was a big step, but congratulations to you for taking that step.
Well, thank you. And I will say that as a person, it was a very gratifying step because I really do know that this is an area that much like unlike many areas of the law. One of the things I frequently will say to clients, and that I know to be fundamentally true, is that I'm the only lawyer that you probably will ever meet that will save you more money than I cost.
Yeah, good.
And wow, that's a pretty amazing thing to be able to
That
say.
that is. Well, good for you. That was had to be an enlightening thing for you to realize that, and then to share that with your clients. That I know it helps to put them at ease too. So that was really profound. Well, Nicole, well, I'm going to ask you now to bring us to the present time and share your proudest entrepreneurial moment.
Um, my proudest entrepreneurial moment was the day that I first made my fifth that $50,000 in a month.
Oh, wow!
Um,
Congratulations.
yeah, because to me, that was like I said at the very beginning, something that was sort of inconceivable to be able to be done. I just had so many money blocks. And to actually make it happen was something that I just was so amazed. It's like the first time that you really have a giant, what you consider to be a giant success is a very profound moment for anybody, right?
Oh,
And
yes.
there's never, the fact that I've been able to replicate it and exceed it since then has nothing on the first time that it happened. And so I'll tell you that that is definitely because when you really set something that you feel like is an impossible goal and then you reach it, the feeling of that can't be beat. And then then you can set another impossible goal and reach it.
Right. Good. Well, and our storyteller listeners, they really need to hear stories like yours and how you're growing and making your business a success. So, will you tell us one thing that is really exciting you in your business right now?
Well, one of the things that's really exciting me right now is that I'm working on a project called the Smart Health 101 podcast. And this is something that has sort of a natural evolution for me because, as an elder law attorney, one of the things that I deal with every single day are the challenges of healthcare
Okay,
and
right.
how families and people are blindsided by healthcare and what it means to need it in our country today. Because a lot of people, until you experience either a chronic illness or something like that, you really can't fathom how messed up our healthcare system is.
Yeah, I know it. It's frightening.
And the cost associated with that. A lot of people have a lot of really realistic ideas about the cost of healthcare and what it even, people believe that Medicare is going to pay for everything and, the long-term care is going to be taken care of. And there's all kinds of like very big myths out there. So the Smart Health 101 podcast, that was the first part of it. That was sort of the first natural evolution on a professional level. But then also, Charlotte, that your listeners may not be aware of this, but I also got diagnosed with a rare disease myself at the beginning of January 2015. And it was, as you know, but your listeners don't know, for me, I was in the hospital for 27 days. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I had been experiencing symptoms for over a year
Oh, my.
prior to it. I had been told by a doctor all kinds of things that were absolutely inaccurate about my healthcare condition. I sort of knew that he was full of it, but I disregarded my intuition. There's a lot of things that happened. And to me personally, even though I'm so well versed in this healthcare landscape, that I could see how easy it was for somebody to get really messed up, in
Sure,
the healthcare system, and then
sure.
going into the hospital and all these other things that just happened. And I sat in the hospital and I watched what happened to not only myself but other people while I was there. And then since then, I've been involved in the rare disease community quite heavily. I've talked to many other people that have both my condition, which is called lymphangioliomyomatosis, and other rare diseases and other chronic illnesses. And what I find is there's a lot of common threads that run through the experience of persons when they get involved with chronic illness, rare disease, misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, all these things that happen. And so the Smart Health 101 podcast is really geared toward the person that wants to be able to take better control of these issues and learn the best ways to do it. Understanding health insurance on a more fundamental level,
Wow.
understanding how to speak to your doctor, understanding how to get answers when answers aren't forthcoming, understanding how you can be a better patient so that your doctor can help you,
Right.
um, understanding when you need to fire your doctor,
Yes.
right? And what to do if your doctor fires you,
Mm-hmm.
because that also has happens a lot to people. So a lot of those issues that revolve around healthcare in America today and the practical ways to sort of overcome the challenges that we're facing.
Well, I do, since you did mention this, I watched you on Facebook with the pictures of you in the hospital with your son Marcus, one taking a nap, and I just think it's a wonderful evolution that you are going into the podcast to help people understand healthcare because we definitely need it. And you said something that tickled me is that Because with my generation, the doctors were always on a pedestal. You just never doubted, you never questioned, you just did what they said, and now it we can't do that anymore.
No, we can't. And because the system is very broken and bifurcated. And even and I don't want anybody to get the sense that I am anti-doctor, because I'm not. And if
No,
I'm I'm very pro doctor, and some of the problems of the system are definitely not of their making, right?
right,
They're caught in it just as much as we are. But the problem is that when they have to operate within their little system, and just like everything that happens in this world, right, is when you may have something that's just not in the norm, you are not necessarily going to get the better answer if you don't take control.
yes,
And so that is, I even if on a very basic level, if I can only get that across to people, is that you have to take control of these issues, because nobody's going to do it for you. And do not make the mistake of thinking that your doctor has all the answers, because they don't.
right,
Even if I got that simple lesson across to people, that would make me happy, because that's the problem that we all face. Even I, who I'm not in the same generation as you, Charlotte, but we want to trust our professionals, right?
right,
We don't want to have to chase around answers. We don't have time for that even in our lives, right? And that was my problem, is I just didn't want to even deal with it. I didn't want to deal with my health problems. I was
sure,
too busy.
right, right,
But at the end of the day, we have to be responsible, right? Because who cares more about your health than yourself, or should?
right.
Nobody should care more about your health than yourself, except for your family will, right?
Well,
But the only way that you're going to get the best result in your healthcare is by taking control.
yes, yes. That's a very a message that you have to keep repeating to us. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Well, Nicole, what's the best business advice that you have ever received?
The best business advice I've ever received is to build a team.
Oh,
Um, I had struggled, like many entrepreneurs do, with the lone wolf syndrome, sort of, the hero, like I can do everything and nobody can do it as well as I can. So why would I pay somebody to do that? Or I don't have time to explain it, and
right.
blah, 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 all those things that we all get caught up in. But what I've learned over time is that I do have very, very, very specific, what we call unique abilities,
Mm-hmm.
things that I can do very well, much better than other people. But there are other things that people can do much better than I can do.
Right.
And so to build the team of people around me to do the things that I don't do very well, or that I can do but don't particularly like to do. And so because I don't particularly like to do, I tend to push them off.
Right.
Building the team around that was the best advice I've ever gotten, the best thing I've ever done for myself by far, because that has what given me the freedom to do other things with my life that I find very profoundly satisfying. And just being confident that things are getting taken care of by a competent team is priceless to me.
Oh, I can believe that that would be priceless to you. Good for you for taking those steps and not feeling like you have to do it all because you can't do it to the extreme level that you want to and to reach the goals that you have set. So good for you. That's a good lesson for all of us to learn. So, would you tell us what's the vision of the future of your business?
That's a great question, and I'm going to answer it in this way. You know, I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because things are changing so rapidly in our world today that I want to be open to the opportunities of where they're at, of where we're going as a world, as a country, as a state, in my local environment, whatever that may be. And so I look at my business as becoming an authority in the area of care, healthcare, long-term care, the legal aspects of care, not just in my home state of Michigan, but nationwide.
Good.
Um, and I also am open to the idea that it may become something much bigger than that or even slightly different because of the fact that things are changing so rapidly that I'm going to have to change with it. And I'm very willing to do that because I love the idea and excitement of new opportunities and new things. And so while I have a very specific vision about those ideas, like I said, we're going to be an authority on that going forward. I also am very aware that things may evolve, and
Right.
I'm welcoming that with open arms.
Good. Well, I didn't take the time to say I'm really, really pleased. Pleased isn't the word. I'm excited that you have started another podcast about the healthcare because you've got two avenues, two areas that we really all need education in. And I think it's marvelous that you have taken those two areas to teach us more. So good for you for doing that.
Well, thank you, Charlotte. And I just will say I have a passion for these topics. I think that, our vulnerabilities as human beings are very much in the place right now of healthcare over time and end of life decisions. The vulnerabilities that exist are not unique to any particular person or persons. They're something that we face universally. You can be the most successful person in the world. You can have the most money in the world. You can try to be the healthiest person in the world, and you can be stricken by an illness.
Right,
And it can be very unexpected. And you may not be able to control the outcome of that, right?
right.
Because as far as I'm aware, there's nobody that's been able to stop sickness or death.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, these are vulnerabilities that we share commonly. And so, this area, but we don't need to be so vulnerable. I think that's where my passion lies, is I am very much against being vulnerable. Okay.
I,
I don't like that feeling myself. And I know that nobody else does either. So, how can we manage our vulnerability, right? How can we manage what this looks like for us if these things happen? And unfortunately, 50% approximately of the American population has a chronic illness.
wow.
So, your chances of experiencing chronic illness are high. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, you don't want to be like, well, that's not going to happen to me. If you are a thinking person and a rational person, you know darn well that it could happen to you. And so you don't, but how do we mitigate that? How do we enable ourselves and enable the people around us to be able to do what's right and the best thing for us when those times come? And that's where this whole idea of both Smart Planning 101 and Smart Health 101 come in, is both the legal and financial aspects and then the healthcare. How do we separate those things? How do we put them together? How do we create a plan for the future that lessens our vulnerability in these areas?
I think that as people know there are answers out there, that we are more willing to take the blindfolds off and just take a gentle step at first to see does this lady have answers for us? Is it possible to be prepared? And so I know it's going to be a great service that you are doing for all of us, and not just in Michigan, but you got to go nationwide too.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the purpose of the podcast, right? Because
Right.
even though I can't service clients nationwide as an attorney, I'm only licensed to practice law in 2 states. Um, I can service people in the information space,
Right.
and that is where I intend to go.
Yeah. Well, Nicole, can you share one of your personal habits that you strongly believe contributes to your success?
Um, One of my personal habits that is probably fundamental is I am an avid yoga practitioner.
Oh,
Um, and I do a specific form of yoga called Bikram yoga, but that I don't think that that's what's necessary. And the reason why I say that that contributes to my success is because, a lot of people think of yoga as just like these postures and being flexible and all this stuff. But if you take it for what its original intent was, as a way to control the mind and thus control the body, um, it really can become powerful for you in all aspects of life. And so I mentioned earlier, I have this rare disease. It's a lung disease, and the thing that has really helped me is by doing yoga, I've really been able to increase my breath capacity
Oh my
to the
goodness.
point that if anybody just looked at my numbers, you would never think I was sick.
Wow.
I mean, you'd have to look at certain other things to determine that I have this lung disease. I'm probably healthier than most people that you know that are my age. And so, even though I have what's literally considered a deadly disease, and so this also helps me in work because it helps me control stress. It helps me become calm and centered. It helps me with my employees. It's just a way, yoga, when used properly, can become a way of thinking and a way of life that helps you be a better person in all areas. And so that is probably my best habit by far that I think both helps myself personally and really does help the others around me as well.
Thank you for those examples. And I want to ask, I believe that our mind has so much power, our subconscious mind and our self-talk. And when you are experiencing and practicing yoga, I'm guessing that there's a lot of positive affirmations and positive self-talk that you think about yourself as being healthy. And don't you think that helps too?
Well, it's funny because actually it's not quite that, although it's close to that. What it is there's two dimensions of yoga that are along that line, but are different. And
Okay.
one of them is the ability to not think about anything but what you're doing right at the moment.
Oh,
So one of the biggest focuses of true yoga is to be in the moment, to not let your brain go out of the room, to come back to your breathing, to come back to how you're standing, to think about how your feet are placed on the ground and is your weight evenly spaced among all parts of your feet into your toes. Really being present inside of your body, and so being able to shut off the outside world. So that's one part of it. Then the other part of it is being okay with where you are in this moment. Because what I think a lot of people do in yoga that is not positive is they compare themselves. How was I yesterday? I was able to do better at that posture yesterday. How is that person next to me? Oh my gosh, look at her. She can wrap her legs all the way around like that. Like a lot of comparison can be done in that
sure,
way.
sure.
And none of that is positive. That is absolutely negative. So when you are really taking yoga to the right level, you recognize that today I can't go that far because my body, my back hurts. And if I do that, I'm going to hurt myself. And so I'm not going to push myself to do that because that's not the right thing. But then, you know what? Yesterday I felt awesome and I went there and I held that posture, but I can't do that every single time because every single day, where you're at mentally, where you are physically, it changes. And so you want
Uh-huh.
to learn how to be okay with where you are today. And that is so powerful in terms of all over life, right? Like
Yes.
today it's this way, tomorrow it's going to be a different way, and I'm going to be okay with that.
That's a very big lesson to learn.
Oh, there's no, that is probably for me one of the most amazing thing I've been able to take away from it because, just like everybody, I think, this is a human thing to do is compare yourself to other people
Yes.
to be dissatisfied with yourself because somebody else has been able to do something else. And, or, gosh, I used to be so strong and now I'm so weak or, whatever it is that you're doing that's negative. Right.
Right.
So it isn't necessarily about positive self-talk, or it's more about being accepting of the person that you are and embracing the person that you are, just with the realization that tomorrow it may be different.
Okay. Uh,
And that's, I think, a good thing too.
I think that is a very good thing because if you have a good day, you want all your days to be good, and they usually aren't all the same.
Right. But then right, if you can recognize that, right, and say, today wasn't a good day, tomorrow will be different.
Right.
I don't know how it's going to be different, but it's going to be different.
Yes.
And then you just know that it enables you to be a lot calmer because we've all experienced this. Like you go to bed and you've been so upset. This whole thing is like this whole day has been horrible. Just everything sucks. You're just depressed about it. And then you go to sleep and you wake up and you're like, wow, why was I so down about that yesterday? It's fine,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Everything's fine. Like, what was I getting all worked up about that for? Like, the answer is so simple, and I just need to do this thing, and then it's fine, right? And so, we all experience that, right?
Yes.
And
Yes,
so
for sure.
you just need to remember that that's how it is,
That's how it is.
and you need to remember that daily,
Daily. Okay.
daily,
That's a
daily, 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 not just in the time that it happens, but daily.
daily. That's a very good assignment that you've given us. Thank you for that. Well, Nicole, do you have an internet resource to share with our listeners which helps your efficiency, like Evernote or an app? And storytellers, you will find the links to these sites in the show notes of today's episode at bizstoryshared.com/Nicole Wipp. So, do you have a resource like that of any kind?
Oh gosh, I use so many different things. What's the most useful thing to me? Well, one of the things I absolutely love that makes my life really easy is Canva.
Oh, yes.
And this is totally like off. I was trying to think of something that would parallel everything we've been talking about, but really, this is something, it's a photo editing app that enables you to make cover images for different social media and things like that. And they have a new iteration of it out that's for businesses where you can magically resize the picture to fit other social media platforms and things like that. And I'll tell you, I actually enjoy creating my own images. I don't like to hire somebody to do that for the most part. But this is like cut, and I enjoy it, so I don't tend to let other people do it. But
Good.
this enables me to do it very quickly and efficiently and actually have a greater reach. So I really love Canva. I love the business version of it. I do highly recommend it.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's a very good recommendation. And so now, would you describe for us who are perfect referrals for your business? And I know that you are just licensed in 2 states right now, but if we cover those 2 states, we'll ask the listeners if they have um, business associates or clients who would benefit from doing business with you.
Well, I'm actually not so concerned about my law firm clients or my law firm business. So let's just talk about the podcasts. Who are the perfect referrals for the podcasts,
Okay,
right?
great.
And so that could apply to anybody that would potentially be listening here. And I'll say that, for the Smart Planning 101 podcast and the Smart Health 101 podcast, these are podcasts geared toward people that like to know things. They like practical solutions to complex topics. You want to be the most prepared for any given circumstance. You want to understand what people are saying that may not be true, because there's a lot of conventional wisdom out there that is absolutely false and does not apply to anybody that's listening to this podcast. Like, I'll give you an example of what I mean. The idea that a will helps you avoid probate is endemic. People believe somehow that wills
I
are
know.
non-probate tools. Well, a will is your ticket into probate court, right? And I have a
Right.
podcast episode about that explains that.
Yes.
Things like that are things that people believe but are not true, that we are seeking to dispel these myths and say, and here are some solutions. So either Smart Health 101 or Smart Planning 101 are the ideal places to learn about those things.
Great. Thank you for that. And Nicole, if you could recommend just one book to our listeners, what would it be?
I actually, the book that I was talking about earlier, that I was saying as far as the mantra that I was thinking about, which is Wanting What You Want by Dan Sullivan.
Okay.
If you are the kind of person that really wants to go bigger in your business, you want to be more successful, and you know that you have some chains around your mind that are holding you back, this is a good resource to read and internalize so that you can um, be okay with taking yourself to the next level and sort of freeing your mind up to do it, because magical things happen when you do that.
Great. I'm definitely going to read that book. Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, Nicole, I've truly enjoyed listening to your journey and the stories that you've shared. So, will you please share one more time how we can get in touch with you and any other resources that you want us to have, and then we'll say goodbye.
I would just encourage everybody to visit either smartplanning101.com or smarthealth101.com. And those are great resources for all the topics that we've talked about today.
Great. Thank you for that. And thank you for being so generous with your time, expertise, and your experiences. Listeners, remember that you can find the links to these resources and everything else that we've been chatting about in today's episode by going to bizstoryshared.com/Nicole Wipp. Thank you again, Nicole, and goodbye for now.
Bye-bye, Charlotte. Thank you for having me.
Give the storyteller some love. Go to bizstoryshared.com, click on the iTunes button, and give a 5-star review. Thanks.